Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so I've been having a good week. You guys saw the video where my friend was racing down the hill. That's actually a much bigger hill than it looked on the video, but it's pretty steep. He got up to about 35 miles an hour, maybe even a little bit more, because when I was hitting 35, he was still pulling away from me, so he might have been going a little bit faster. So this video, I want to give you the simplicity of life, and I want to give you a concept that will simplify everything and put you in a direction that makes life a lot easier for you. Okay, so I'm a very spiritual person. I started meditating when I was around 19 years old or so, and it just like led me to go deeper and deeper and deeper to where I was meditating hours every day, and I mean every day for 12 years before I stopped. So around the 9th year or so, maybe the 10th year, I went through a really, really big spiritual awakening. So what people are going through now, and they're calling it a spiritual awakening, I have yet to meet a single person who has had anything near what I went through, other than the greats like Buddha himself, Jesus Christ, etc. So during this awakening, I had for 6 months, because it lasted for 6 months. It was just this, and it was almost like someone said, this was a gift from God to show you your capabilities, that if you continue to meditate and learn and develop and practice your spiritual gifts, you're going to get this good. And I'm at that place right now. So I'll give you one example. During the spiritual awakening, I could just, how do I say this? I want to say this properly. I could essentially just read people's minds, okay? So my sister's like, well, prove it. And I was like, all right. So I go grab a deck of cards. Or actually, I think she did it. She goes, okay, so what card is this? And I go, oh, that's a ace of hearts. And she goes, oh, okay, lucky. And then it was like 4 diamonds, and just like boom, boom, boom. And it went up to 14. She's like, how are you doing this? So then her and her friends are like, oh, you must have marked those cards. Well, it was at her place. I'd never touched those cards in my life. So she went to the back. So they were at a stage in life where they were doing a lot of gambling and, playing, card games instead. So she had a brand new deck in the back that was wrapped in plastic still. She goes, okay, we'll do it now. And so again, I went up to, I think, 11, and then she started to cry. She's like, how are you doing this? And I said, I don't know. I'm just open. I'm awake. So I went around healing people, doing a lot of really, really incredible things. Now, the really good news is there's a lot of witnesses during that period of time that saw me do all this stuff, including some members of my family. And my ex-girlfriend, the Laotian girl, she was there a lot. She saw a lot of it. So I'm replaying this video because the fun in this video, the laughter, is really what this video is about. Now, I'm going to cut to the chase. So during the spiritual awakening, for 6 months, every time I went to bed, I would awake into, I'm going to say a classroom, but it wasn't a classroom. There's really nothing. It was nothingness. But during this nothingness, sometimes I'd have to wait for a while, but it's like the minute I fell asleep, boom, I was awakened into another world, another space. I'm going to call it another space because I don't know what it was. And sure enough, another lesson would come. Now, the lessons would come in images, drawings, symbols. Could be really, really simple things like a circle or a triangle or a square, triangle, circle. That actually has a very deep meaning, by the way. So I'll give you that meaning. So there's a famous artist, or so I think someone doesn't know who first came up with it. So it's kind of like an anonymous thing. So there's a square, triangle, and then circle. So here's what it is. The square is essentially when you're using your lower reptilian brain. You're kind of like a block. It's instinctual. Your instinctual system. The triangle is when you start to use your logical brain. Okay. This is when it's all about angles, and you're starting to think and starting to figure stuff out, like on a 2D level. Now, the circle represents the right brain, because when you're in your when you're in your left brain, you become very angular. Your face tightens up, your muscles, your bones kind of stick out, so your face looks more angular. But when you soften up, meaning open up to your right brain, because that's the soft brain and that's the secondary set of nerves that relaxes, so it makes your face look softer and more rounder. Your body language becomes more rounder and softer.
You crack me up when you're sliding back and forth. I'm going to show you the video. Let's show them the machine.
Alright, so this is my buddy Nixon that just went racing down the hill at about 35 miles an hour.
I didn't see you pedaling.
On a big wheel.
Get some light on so we can see. Show me what you got. It's called a razor. Yeah.
So I started learning all these really deep lessons. Now here's the thing. I went to Berkeley and there was this flag outside of the bookstore. And I walked in and the manager said, "Do you know what that means?" And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, nobody knows what that means." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "That's actually a very famous drawing." I'm like, "Really?" Because I just had that awakening, and then a couple days later I drive an hour into about 45 minutes into Berkeley and I see this flag so he's no, nobody knows what that means. He goes, "That's kind of what makes it famous. In fact, nobody knows who drew the original drawing of it, so it's kind of anonymous." I'm like, no, I can tell you exactly what it means. And I told him what I just told you guys. Like, no, that's not what it means. Like, no, I'm telling you, that's exactly what it means. So it was lesson time whenever I went to bed. Now this went on for 6 months, okay? And a lot of the teachings that I teach in my Cracked Female Code course come directly from this 6-month period of time. Okay, a lot of teachings that I've been teaching over the last 4 years come directly from this 6-month period of time. So a lot of people then take my course, Cracked Female Code. They're like, "Well, where did you learn this?" Because I've had clients. One guy had his doctorate degree, actually 2 doctorate degrees. He goes, "Look, I've taken all the courses. I've read all the books." He was about 45 years old at the time. I was about 36. So he kind of looked at me like, "Who are you to teach?" And he said this. He goes, "Who are you to teach me something that I don't already know?" And my first thought, like, wow, that's cocky, because this is what I specialize in. So he was blown away, and towards the end of the course, he goes, "Where did you learn all this stuff?" So it's not mainstream. It's nothing you're going to find in a book out there. It's nothing you're going to find from another seminar, etc. All I'm saying is there was a series of lessons that I learned every night. Now let me tell you one little piece before I get to the main chunk. The teachings were very, very symbolic. Like literally symbols. There was no word, there was no text, there was no video or clear images. It was just symbols. Alright, I'm going to give you how do I say this? I'm going to give you one experience of this whole thing. So essentially the way it worked was I'd meditate every morning. And then I just, after an hour or two of meditating, I'd go on and do my thing, whatever. And something would pull me like, hey, okay, now that at lunchtime, I say, okay, go to this place. So I went to the next city over, which was Fairfield, and I went to their library, which I'd never been to before. Never knew where it was. It just says, hey, go down this road, take a left here, go here, boom, there's a library. I pulled over, and I just had it was like a feeling, like just walk in. So I walked in, and this whole 6 months experience was like this. I was like, okay. I didn't hear nothing. I didn't see anything. It was just like a feeling, like almost pulling me inside place, like go inside here. And every time I had an experience like this, someone would generally come up and walk up to me and say something. Sometimes it would just be a little kid or someone just, hey, blah, 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 just say something and then walk away. And it would have a huge impact on me over the next hour or two. Like, oh, like they'd say something you'd heard 1,000 times, but you finally understood the meaning. So I walked into the library fully expecting something like this to happen, or you're not looking for it, but because you're not supposed to look. Like things are just supposed to fall into your lap. So I walked into the library, and then I was greeted, hello, sir, blah, blah, blah. And then I walked in, walked around, and I just kind of walked around, and nothing was happening. And I kind of stopped, and boom, right when I looked down, there's a couple of books on symbolism. So I looked at the books, and I read a little bit, and one of the things it says is symbols or images are much more powerful in teaching and get you to the root or deeper meaning of something than learning something in a class or reading it in a book. And I kind of blew it off, like, oh, okay, and I was kind of looking like, and I felt like nothing was happening, but I was flipping through the pages of all these different symbols from everything, from different religions to different cultures to just everything. So I was kind of getting bored and I was walking around. I kind of was milling towards the front door and kind of going that direction. And right before the exit, there was a door to the right, and there was a sign. It was talking about some kind of meditation thing, and it was a free class of meditation. And I was like, wow, it's funny because I went to Berkeley like 5 times and tried to go to Sacramento and all these places. Like, well, how do you meditate? No one taught me, so I had to learn on my own. And the way I actually learned was a kid in college said, my mom said everyone actually knows how to meditate. You just have to make yourself do it. And I was like, okay, fine. And that's really what it was. I had to make myself. Because when I first started meditating, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Well, nothing. And I'd give up after about 10 minutes or 7 minutes. I'm like, well, what am I, like, I didn't get it. And so, like, literally, you're just supposed to make yourself do it. And the learnings come. It is a really interesting thing because you start to learn how to meditate by actually meditating. So I go into the class essentially because the flyer said, hey, learn how to meditate or some or maybe it was some technique. But I was like, yeah, I wanted to learn because like no one else actually taught you how. They just talked about meditation, but they never said, here's how you do it. So I was like, yeah, I want to, I want to see if there's something else to learn. So I walked in just before they started the class, probably 2 minutes, and they go, come in, sit down. So they kind of sat me towards the back, and I'm just kind of looking at all these different people, wondering, like, what's this all about? And what ended up happening, they had us do some meditation. They said, now, here's what, and I forget what they taught us to do, but do this, and then when the timer's up, we'll stop you. I was like, okay, and we did it for like 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it was. And okay, now, do some breathing and then do this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And okay. And then we did like maybe one other technique, and they go, okay, so we want you to close your eyes and just sit there in a relaxed state, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay. So then what they said, okay, everyone open your eyes. So they held up a card. They're like, did anybody see this word? And like 70% of the hands went up. And then like, okay, did anybody see this? I think it was a symbol. Again, I don't remember the first couple things. And about 30% of the hands went up. And he goes, did anybody see this? And then about 5% of the hands went up. And then they said, did anybody see anything else? And this is where it got really interesting. They had kind of implored because nobody had raised their hand, and they said, did you see anything at all? Anything, even if it doesn't make sense to you? Because what I saw wasn't a symbol or word. It was nothing like what they had put on the cards. Now, I'm a pretty brave guy, and I think since I was a kid, I had no problem like raising my hands or asking a question. And so I just said, well, this is probably wrong. And I said, but it's kind of weird because I saw this like little tiny like guy. I think he was Indian, had this white turban thing and white clothing thing like a robe, and his eyes were really, really squinty. Oh, and he had a really white beard that went down to about here to a point, and he had like a white mustache, etc., etc. And they were like, what? And so then he lifted a picture and goes, is this the guy you saw? I'm like, yeah, that's him. So we had a conversation for a while, and here's what it was. So this was the leader of their group in India, and they traveled around the world. So what they were searching for is people that could see him. So that was their way of identifying, like, yes, you are like one of the people we're looking for. Because I remember them saying that at the moment that they started the meditation, he was sending his image to us. And the person or people that saw it were the people that they wanted to bring into this group. And I was kind of like, I'll be honest with you, I kind of felt like, okay, this is weird. I'm not going to go to the other side of the world. I don't know anyone over there. And even though it may not have been true, I kind of thought this could be a cult. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. So they had implored me, and even some of the people that's sitting down, like, you should get involved. I'm like, well, and I was going through a really, really spiritual experience. That's when I went through my awakening. This was probably a good 2 months into it or 3 months or whatever. But I didn't, because I just kind of felt like my journey was really like between me and God. I really like my whole journey since I was a kid is like, I want God to show me. Because otherwise, if someone shows it to me in a book or I could have been influenced, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't influenced by anyone at all. So I've had this really what's this word, like solitude with God. And I just wanted to know, is this stuff real? That was a real big part of my journey. Like, I had to know. And the other thing is, I didn't want to become a follower of anything, even of Buddhism, of a temple. I wanted to just learn what I had to learn. And again, learn naturally, like first-hand experience, because I didn't want anyone to limit me. That's what it was. So now, here's what this video is about. Alright, so there's one thing I want to share with you first though. Learning through words, language, communication is extremely limiting. It's very hard to learn by talking. So a lot of things I do in my videos, I do a lot of symbology. I do a lot of metaphors and stories to be symbolic of something else. If you can understand the story, if you can understand the example, if you can understand the symbol, then you'll have a deeper, actual, real understanding of what I'm talking about. During a really in-depth NLP training, by the way, NLP stands for neuro-linguistic, which means languaging or language, neuro-linguistic programming. So what we study is the unconscious language patterns and communication patterns that people use that are outside of their awareness, but they do it all the time. We also study the symbology of language and how it impacts people and how much power it has on the effect of someone's behavior, their decisions, and the things they do and don't do. So during the course, we started learning about how animals actually communicate. Animals communicate by sending symbols to each other, okay? Like images, triangles, circles, and it may not be triangles and circles, but symbols, okay? They communicate, without talking. It's basically through images from the mind. That's what I'm trying to say, like images going from one mind to the other. Honestly, it's exactly like cell phones, how you can have a video or an image and you can airdrop, or what's the other ones? Messages, etc., text messages. So you can send images and thoughts from cell phone to cell phone. Now here's the thing you have to understand. Computers, cell phones, etc., are not advanced. They are a very rough copy of the human nervous system, of the human brain, of the human visual system. Okay, they're still very far behind. They're very far behind the capabilities of our own brains, our nervous system, our eyes, our visual cortex, etc. So believe it or not, but everything that's on a computer or in your home, like a hinge, is like the elbow. It's like your joint. Everything is a copy, like the electrical wires. Those are that's a copy of your nerves. There's a technique called a swish pattern. Now there's a couple different forms of swish patterns. It's where you visualize something like, okay, down on the right, you shrink it up really small to like little tiny dot, like an image of something, and then you whoosh, and you make it explode all the way up into the left into a big giant picture. You can use this for motivation, for changing a belief. Now there's different ways you use it, okay? And I remember during class about the second or third week, I was like, wait a minute, that's just like a computer where when you shrink it up, it goes down and to the right. He goes, yes. I go, then when you double tap on it, it swishes up and to the left and fills up the whole screen. He goes, yes. He goes, computers are a copy of the human nervous system. I was like, okay. So while we're learning this stuff about how animals communicate symbolically by sending images, etc., back and forth, they do it with humans too. So if you're a very tuned in person, you'll be very tuned into animals. Like you'll get a sense of what they're trying to say to you. Now here's the deal. Humans used to do this all the time before we developed language. Now the first time I had this experience was during this spiritual awakening. I had begged my girlfriend to take me to the Laotian monk in Stockton, California, which was about 45-minute drive away, maybe an hour from where we were at. And we went, and obviously the first day she translated, and then we went back about 5 days later and she translated. So every time I went, I had to go with her. And then about the fourth or fifth time, he was talking, I'd asked her a question, and then he started to answer and in Laos. And I kind of got irritated that she was translating, and so I just started talking. Now, I was still meditating every morning for hours. And whenever I'd meditate, I'd be clear, wide open. And so he and I were having a back and forth conversation. And I just remember looking at her, and because she was completely silent, she was staring at me with her mouth open. I'm like, what? She goes, how are you doing that? I'm like, doing what? She goes, how are you talking to Buddha calm? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just talking to you. I'm like, and he was grinning from ear to ear. I was like, oh, that's right. He spoke no English. I spoke no Laos at all. See, humans used to really, really understand each other before we developed language. Language is what confused everything because it limited everything down to words and texts, etc. And it's like a straw from your forehead to their forehead. It's such a finite amount of information to get through. And this is why people get very frustrated while they're trying to communicate. Whereas before, there was no straw. It was wide open, your whole body, all the way around 365 degrees, like left to right, up and down, like a big circle ball of energy. Communication was effortless before. I truly believe the Tower of Babel in the Bible is when they introduced language, words, and communication. And that's what confused everything. That's what confused everybody, and that's what divided everybody. So another experience I had, I went to Stockton. I had moved away where I'm at now. So I'd been here for about a year, and then I drove all the way over. So from here, it's about, I think 2.5 hours to Stockton. And I didn't know that Buddha Kam had been made the highest monk in Northern California. He was called I forget, but he was the leader of all the Laotian temples in Northern California. So they moved him to Sacramento, which was about 30 minutes north of Stockton. So I get there. And I walk in and no one's there. And I'm walking around and nobody was there. And I'm like, where is everybody? So somebody walks through a door as a monk, and he didn't speak any English. But he did understand when I said Buddha Kam or Bu Kam. And he's, Sacramento, Sacramento. And that's about the extent of his language. I'm like, I don't know where, because I'd never been to the temple in Sacramento. He goes, go. I'm like, I don't know how. He goes, go. Yes, you go. And he starts looking at me, and I'm getting images of these signs. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. He goes, go. And I'm like, okay, so essentially he wanted me to trust that I'll find it. Now you might be saying, use your cell phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. And we definitely didn't have anything like Google or Google Maps or anything like that. So I just like, heck, why not? I mean, I know how to get home to Sacramento. So I'm driving up the road, highway, I think it was Highway 5 or Highway, forget which one I got on. So I'm heading up towards Sacramento. And I saw this sign. I go, oh, that's the sign I saw in my head. So I took that exit. All right, so there's something I want to say. Here's the deal. You guys were lied to. All of us were lied to. We were told that you have to use words to communicate. That is an absolute lie. That is absolutely not true. So we have been disconnected from this natural ability that we used to have, so you don't know how to use it anymore. So I'm not saying all of a sudden Shazam. I mean, if you open up to that part of your brain, you'll be able to do it. Now, what about the person you're talking to? It's kind of a two-way road here. So my point is, we were limited, and here's the stupidest part of it all. We as humans are waiting for computers to catch up, but we think the computers are the one that are leading the way. No, they are not. They're making you wait for you to tap into an ability that you already have. Here's the funny thing though, like the cell phone's a perfect example of you can send information from phone to phone or from phone to computer and vice versa. Humans have always been able to do this, and you do it on some level naturally, especially the more time you spend around someone. So my best friend's parents used to talk without talking, and I remember I was a kid. I was like probably 13 or 14, and I was standing right next to the dad just outside the sliding glass window from the living room and kitchen area. And his wife was inside, not even in the kitchen, but through the door in the other, further in. And he goes, yes, dear. He goes, I'll do it right now. And I'm like, do what right now? And then he goes, oh, I'm going to do the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but she didn't say anything. And then his daughter goes, oh, they do that all the time. I'm like, do what all the time? He goes, they talk without talking. And I was like, what? And so I experienced them doing that over that summer, maybe one or two more times. And I was like, that is incredible. So my goddaughter and I had an experience like that when she was in high school. We were after a volleyball game. They won, and I think everybody was deciding what they were going to do after, or we were talking about an event or something. So there's about 10, 11, 12 of us, and I've shared this story before with you guys. And she was one or two people to the right of me. So there's two people. So we were like in a circle, about 10, 12 people. And a lady out of nowhere, she goes, "Oh my God, you guys talk without talking." And I go, "Who are you talking about?" She goes, "You and Cindy." I'm like, "No, we don't." And then my goddaughter goes, "Oh yeah, we do that all the time." And I go, "We do?" And then I thought about it. I was like, "Oh, that's right." And I forget what Cindy said. I think she said what we were talking about. So, and I go, "Oh, we were talking about that." And the lady goes, "See," or something like that. So it was really like shoved in my face. I was like, "Oh God, we do that all the time." She goes, "Yeah." And I'm just remembering something now. One of her friends had said one day, like, "Why don't you guys talk?" And I was like, "We talk all the time." She goes, "You guys have been sitting there for half an hour and haven't said a word." I'm like, "No, we've been talking about ball," and it just kind of went over my head. But right now, as I'm remembering this, I was like, "Oh yeah, we do that all the time," or we did. Oh yeah, back to the monk. I almost forgot about that. So basically, I'm going up the freeway, and I just went past, and like, wait, I remember that sign, and I took the exit, and then I was like, "Where do I go now?" And then when I got down to a certain, I think it was like a stop sign, said turn here, so I turned there, and then I got to this one area and I was stuck. I knew I was really close, and I looked around. I was like, "Oh, it's got to be right there." Sure enough, I found the temple, and Buddha Kam was there. So there's a lot more for you guys to explore, and I really, really recommend that you start looking at life in a much, much more open way. And I promise you, if you dedicate yourself to deep, deep meditation, we're talking 1 or 2 hours every single day. And then on weekends, increase it to say 4 hours, at least one day of the week. And if you could do more, that's better. You will have amazing insights in life. Okay, so here's what this video is all about right now. Okay, so the very, very last, at the end of the 6 months, the very last night, I went to sleep. And when I woke up into that, called that other space, that other world, the classroom, so to speak, it was kind of a funny thing because I knew this was the very last lesson. And I was sad, of course, because on the one hand I was burned out, but on the other hand I didn't want it to end. But here's what happened. So I was waiting as usual, and for some reason it was like taking an extra long time. And I remember thinking like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready, and everything was blank, just completely pure blank. I think technically what you'd call it is the void. It was kind of like darkness, like there was just nothing there. But that's how every class started. But this just lasted a little extra longer, so I'm kind of like, well, what's going on? Well, that was part of the lesson. It was symbolically telling me nothingness. So what happened was it suddenly, like in white, it wasn't like I really saw a piece of chalk or anything, but it was kind of like on the void of the universe, or whatever you want to call it. It was just like, it drew a rectangle, like kind of a big long rectangle, kind of in the sky, so to speak, in the universe. And then it stopped, and I'm just thinking, okay. And normally it didn't take this long, and I was just kind of waiting and waiting. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, it was a rectangle, like, but essentially it was waiting for me to get it. And here's what it was. The nothingness, and the reason why it made me wait in the nothingness was for me to really understand, like, look, this is the void. This is nothing. There's nothing in existence. And then the rectangle was like, oh, I get it. Because I looked at the left side and then the right side. Oh, it's the alpha and it's the omega. Meaning the beginning and the end. And I was like, okay. And so then I was looking at it. I'm like, well, what is this? And then all of a sudden these little call it falling stars, it looked like. They were going into the rectangle. I was like, oh, those are angels. Those are angels or spirits, if you want to call it that, going into this rectangle. So I'm starting to realize, like, this is the beginning of the end. God created this for us to experience. And I'm kind of waiting, and then all of a sudden in the bottom left-hand corner, there's this one tiny, keyword tiny little spark. It hit the bottom left-hand corner all the way across. It became colorful. All of a sudden you had sound, flavor, sight, hearing, smell, emotions, feelings, music. And what it was is that before there was pureness, there was nothingness. It was all pure. Okay, so there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no contrast. In order to experience anything, at least on this dimension, you have to have contrast. You can't hear the vibration of a guitar string if you don't have contrast. You can't taste anything on your taste bud if you don't have contrast. You can't see color. You can't see, if everything is pure nothingness or oneness, there's no contrast. Without contrast, you don't even know you exist. So what it was telling me was this dimension, time, space, dimension, 3 dimensions, etc. It was designed for us to experience life. One of the teachings is the angels are jealous of mankind because we can experience love, but we can also experience pain. We can experience happiness, joy, negativity, positivity, and everything. Angels can't experience that. They're kind of just in the pure form of 100% positivity. Therefore, they have no contrast. Therefore, they can't experience anything. And this is why it says even the angels are jealous of man. This experience that we were given is a gift. It was designed for us. It was given to us literally as a gift from God. That's all it ever was meant to be. That's it. It wasn't meant to be either or, left or right. That's the brain. That's the tree of knowledge. That's the left logical brain. The message that was given to me, life is a gift from God that was meant to be enjoyed. That's it. The whole purpose was for you to enjoy this experience. That's why you're here. Learn how to paint, learn how to color, learn how to build bridges. You know, some people actually like being an architect. It's why they went to school for it. Maybe you don't like that. Well, you're not supposed to do that then. You're supposed to do what you want to do with your life. Regardless of whatever it is, I am telling you, and I don't know how to emphasize this anymore, the message that was sent to me to bring to the world was life is a gift that was meant to be enjoyed. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to enjoy this experience. And it's real simple. Get away from anyone that's not enjoying it. That's bringing you down. That's not bringing positivity into your life. It becomes really simple. Write this down. Go away from bad. Go towards good. That's how simple life becomes. If you really, really want something, you'll keep going after it because it's what you really, really want. It's kind of a balancing act of, okay, I really want this, but I'm banging my head against the wall. So maybe you need to take a step back to look around the left, to look around the right, look over the top. Maybe there's a door handle. Maybe you just open the door and walk through. You were always meant to enjoy life, whatever that means to you. If people are guilting you and shaming you and harming you, etc., get away from those people. I don't care who they are. God is telling you, God did it through me. This is God's, I don't know how to say it, like gift to me to send to you. Life is a gift that was meant to be enjoyed. This whole Alpha, Omega, beginning, ending, all of this was an experience for you to just come in. And you know, when you came into it, you were actually really excited to come here because you knew you were going to experience something here that you can't experience out there. Alright, thank you guys very much for listening. If you like this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And if you want, you can go ahead and leave a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.